I've been working for the last 2.5 years on a research project on global norm evolution and the responsibility to protect. In the context of that project, we have coordinated a team of 18 researchers from China, India, Brazil, and across Europe that worked on the responsibility to protect and the topic of preventing civilians to be killed from mass atrocities in general. Together, over the last 2.5 years, we have conducted more than 250 interviews in more than 15 countries. And we have just recently published a special issue of a journal of conflict, security and development with articles on the position on the responsibility to protect by all 5 BRICS countries and Europe and the United States. We're currently working on a policy paper summarizing the key findings from our project on the responsibility to protect. One of our main, or the key main finding that we want to get across to people that is in that paper is if you look at the debate on the responsibility to protect today, the relevant debate is no longer one that pitches different understandings of sovereignty against each other. An international role for protecting people from atrocities is now widely accepted. When the debate about R2P started in the late 1990s, this was in the context after Srebrenica and Kosovo. And the debate was very much focused on 2 different understandings of sovereignty. One responsible understanding of sovereignty, one the irresponsible or an absolute understanding of sovereignty. And this was kind of related to almost a bad kind and a good kind of sovereignty, and very much also to a Western or non-Western understanding of sovereignty. This dichotomy always had 2 key problems. A, it's wildly inaccurate. All countries the world over have long held sovereignty of others in less than absolute regard. And B, it's also hypocritical when put forward by countries and governments whose record of responsible international behavior is itself not spotless. If you look at the developments over the last decade on the responsibility to protect, we can see that this debate on absolute versus responsible sovereignty is no longer that central or relevant. The experience of Iraq, on the one hand, has reduced the appetite for interventions in a lot of Western countries, and the great majority of post-colonial countries has accepted that some kind of role of international role is necessary to protect civilians, and that sovereignty cannot be absolute. And this principled support for non-intervention, no matter the circumstances, is fading. And as a result, we see a much greater and more widespread readiness to do what's accepted as necessary to protect populations from mass atrocities. This goes far beyond this kind of the usual like Western liberal interventionists. In fact, what we found in our project, which was also done by researchers from around the world, was that these splits between the North and the South, or the rest and emerging and established or democratic powers, or democratic and authoritarian regimes, is not very helpful in explaining positions on the responsibility to protect. Just to give a few examples, it was the non-aligned movement that was ready to authorize and strengthen the UN peacekeeping mission in Rwanda in 1994, whereas the United States was the one in the United Kingdom that pushed back against this intervention. And while Western powers have led interventions in Kosovo and Libya, tens of thousands of peacekeepers from South Asia and Africa have helped protect civilians in dozens of UN peacekeeping missions in the last 20 years. So what we're saying is if you look beyond the rhetorical kind of grandstanding, the need for protection and an international role in protection is widely accepted. That does not mean, of course, that everything now is fine. If you just have to look at the world to know, to look at South Sudan, Syria, DRC, the Central African Republic, to know that the prevention of mass atrocities is a key topic, and we haven't figured it out how to actually prevent these issues. What we're saying, though, is the debate should no longer be or focus on the sovereignty aspect, but on key 3 questions. One is, how to prevent the abuse of humanitarian arguments by great powers, basically how to protect responsibly. And the second key question is how to protect effectively. How do you actually do it? What are the tools and how can they be employed? And the third key question that we're arguing that has been, that should be debated more openly and genuinely is if and how the use of force can protect civilians. So these are some of the issues that we're dealing with in the policy paper that will come out soon. You can find that policy paper and all recommendations, all publications from the project on www.globalnorms.net.